to add.
Certainly. Would you be okay with us adding you to reports and presentations, item D? Is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other changes or alterations?
How's that different than item C?
Yeah, Caitlin, I would just like to confirm item C is just receiving a consensus from the council on their opinion for the countywide 911 addressing. I would suggest that Mark provides his report there.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Then we don't need to alter anything then.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Any other not changes necessary or actual changes necessary for the agenda? Okay. Then,
Whoa.
I'm sorry?
I move we approve the March 27th minutes.
I will second that. Is there any comments or edits necessary? No. Okay. Then I will call for a vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And is now when you'd like to do a roll call?
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we have Joel,
Yep.
Caitlin,
Yes.
Rod,
Yes.
Joanne.
Dang, I wasn't there.
So you're going to abstain?
Yes, I was not there at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Linda,
There, yes, aye.
thank you. Ronnie,
Yes, and I'm here.
thank you. Ruth Groff,
I'll abstain. I don't think I was there.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
and then we'll do our folks in chambers. Mark,
Yes.
Bob Lynch,
Yes.
and Pierre.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. That brings us to report section. First up is flood information webpage overview.
What about the county admin?
Oh, did I jump over that? Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Joel, for mentoring me on this. I'm sorry. County admin up first.
I was about to thank you.
My apologies.
That's okay. So, very quick update from us. Currently, we are dealing with the hiring of the whole health commissioner as well as DSS commissioner. We are very close to finishing with the whole health. DSS, we are anticipating finishing that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Also, our highway director, Jeff Smith, has announced his retirement by the end of July. We will begin the process of hiring for that position also somewhere toward the end of June. That process will also kick in. We have a lot to do with the Center of Government project process. There's a lot of moving parts. The legislatures on Tuesday approved placement of various departments in the Center of Government. So Holt, our architect, has now begun the process of schematic designs. There are various departments that will need to move for the deconstruction of the site. So that process is also ongoing, and we are evaluating our options and also discussing the possible lease spaces that certain department will need to move into. So that's also ongoing process at the moment, and we'll continue to update the committees on how things move forward for us. The county administration is also reviewing other funding sources to support the project. We are anticipating a project cost between $42 to $48 million. So it's a significant part. It's quite a huge cost burden on the county. So we continue to explore any funding sources that can help complement that project. The last item I have here is the EMS service presentation. Mike and his team of DUA will do a presentation to Public Safety Committee next week. We are also expecting a proposal review from CGR. We had a conversation with them to present a proposal for analysis and funding mechanism for countrywide EMS services. So the Public Safety Committee will have an opportunity to review those two options and then decide which direction we'd like to go from there, whether we have sufficient information with the dual proposal to proceed, or if we still want to proceed with going into an agreement with CGR to do another study, not really identifying the gaps. We all know that the gaps exist, but they will be evaluating what model will work and also how to pay for it. Based on, so that will be coming to the Public Safety Committee next week. And then if it refer back to this committee, I believe the next committee setting, you will have an opportunity to bring an input into it as well. So those are my report.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions? Joel?
Yeah, will they be an interim highway superintendent while because I don't imagine you're going to hire instantaneously.
So usually a hiring process will take about anything just around 2 months or more, depending on how we design a project. But yes, in case there's going to be a vacancy, we will have an interim highway director in place.
Great. Any other questions? Well, that was short and sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, now we're moving on to reports. First one up, or am I missing anything else, Joel? Did I miss?
No.
It's next on my list, good. Next up is flood information webpage overview.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin. So I'm just going to walk folks through an updated webpage on the county website. So as folks know, the preliminary FEMA flood maps will go into effect on June 18th. So we're under the 30-day mark here. So our office, the Planning and Sustainability Department, has put together some additional resources that we're maintaining for the county as a whole on the website. Some of those resources were already up there. I'll walk you through those and the new additions that we've put together. Your municipality should have received them in an email from Darby Kiley a few weeks ago with some additional information. But this is just to kind of show you what we've done and what we've worked through regarding this topic. So this is the new county website. If folks haven't seen it, there is now an option for government resources up here. And under that, you'll see this flood information. So this is just a bit of an overview. This page has been here, and these tabs here, these 4 that I'm kind of scanning through highlighting, were already here. We added more information to the flood insurance tab, and we added this flood risks and preparedness tab. So this is just a bit of an overview of what's on the page and just kind of some update information, just so that it's there, noting that the maps will become effective on June 18th. So just to walk you through what was already there, this is just that FAQ we pulled together after the CCO meeting. These expand. We just had these approved by FEMA. It's just a series of questions and answers that we had gathered from you all about, I guess that was a year and a half ago now, maybe 2 years. So those are still there on our website. The access and the description of how to use the flood insurance rate map tools online are still here and maintained and updated. So it walks through the legend, what the legend means, and some additional information down here of how to use the online map. The online map clicks out still by clicking on the picture here. You can see my cursor links up, are also from this link here. So this is where folks can type in their address, search their property, and see if they have what we soon can call old FEMA flood maps that are affecting their properties, or the new maps. So that still is there. We have some local contacts and resources that are still there, so none of this has changed, and also some archived information that had been on the front page, part of that website for some time. So I will now walk you through what's new. So the original flood insurance information on this webpage is still at the bottom of the webpage. We haven't taken anything down, but our goal in this project was to compile and pull together as much self-serving information as we could for folks. We know that there is a lot of questions have come up for folks through this process, and a hope here was to find some resources, put them together, so when folks are asking you questions or in other places in the community there are questions, there's a place that folks can go to kind of self-serve, and once they've really looked at all that information, they may have more questions, and obviously that's something we can work with. But we aimed for, YouTube videos under 5 minutes, aiming at about 2 minutes, short, easy to digest. So I'll walk you through what's here. So there's this great video, talks about what determines how much folks pay for flood insurance, how to buy flood insurance, and then the rest of this page really looks at specific brochures that were at those open houses, but we have the digital versions here. We put renters first because I think there's a big misconception there that renters can't have flood insurance, but they can purchase contents-only flood insurance, and we do have a big renting community here. And as we scroll down here, there's a FEMA FAQ for homeowners and business owners, people that have ownership of their property. Also, a great video from the New York State Association of Professional Surveyors that walks through how you get a flood elevation certificate if that's something folks are interested in. And also a great video that talks about how to submit a claim. Obviously we hope that isn't something that would happen, but we want to have all those resources there. So if that's something someone experiences, that's something that there's a resource for them to access. There's also additional information here for insurance agents and real estate agents. These are the toolkits that exist regarding flood insurance for those folks. And this additional flood insurance information is the original information that was on this webpage when we first put it up about 1.5 years ago. It is really good quality information, especially for folks that are readers, and we wanted to make sure we left that information there as well. So that's that flood insurance section here. The additional piece we put together, and I think folks have heard me say this before through this process, is obviously the concentration we've heard a lot of here is regarding the flood insurance and the cost. But risk and preparedness are also a huge part of this. There will be an increased risk. That's what the data shows. And so we wanted to put together some materials that kind of looked at, what is flooding, what is flood risk, what does that look like, and also what does it look like to be prepared in those situations. So these expand here. So it's the same thing, some short videos. This one walks through kind of, just what happens when a flood happens. This next one talks about flood risk and what that is. And this last video is probably actually one of my favorites in the series. I think we've had a lot of questions from folks about why the floodplain mapping and what it is and how it happened. This one's a little bit longer, but it's a great video where they followed very closely a community out west as they went through the mapping process, and walks you 100% through how it happens, why it takes the amount of time it does, et cetera, really through the science, which is pretty cool. And then under this flood preparedness section, we really tried to walk through a couple of short things folks can do. How do you secure your documents in advance just to be prepared? What are 5 quick things you can do in your home right now that could help if a flood happens? And then some more pamphlets, flyers, things like that of how do you protect your home from flooding? Are you making changes to your home? Learn about what substantial improvement is, and if you might need a flood permit, if that's something that you choose to do. And then we walk through a section of how to get prepared. And so this is a series of things, but it's, sign up for your Tompkins County siren alerts, the New York alert sign up, and then a series of checklists, right? So what's your emergency communication plan? Do you have an emergency supply checklist? Do you have medicine that's ready? Things like that. And then the bottom here, looking at road closure maps and power outages maps, just trying to, there are resources all over the place, they exist, but we're just trying to get them concentrated in one area. And I'll note the note there at the bottom talks about shelters, because I think that's something we felt like people might notice where it's not on this list. But the county does not do blue sky shelters, so they don't have them assigned in good weather. Those are created after an emergency happens. And so just noting where you would find out about those shelter locations if that were to occur. So the last piece that's on those two new pages is down at the bottom here. We really are hoping to keep this an open process to be able to answer questions for folks. So there is a form here at the bottom. You can see it linked there. It opens up where it asks if there's something that you would like to know about that's missing from this webpage, to let us know, and we will look for it and get it up on the webpage. But that is those pages. So I'm happy to take any questions folks have about that.
Thank you, that's great. Any questions? I need to open up so I can see everybody.
Yeah, here, let me stop sharing so it's easier to see for you.
Thank you. Awesome. Any questions?
This is Mark. I just want to say thank you for doing this. This is really helpful. And we updated our flood damage law 2 or 3 years ago and heard a lot of these same concerns and misconceptions. So this is really, really helpful. And Caroline will be holding its public hearing for the adoption of the revised flood damage prevention law on June 4th. So I will plan to precede that meeting with a presentation that includes this information. Great. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Bob.
Excellent.
Yes. Got a question for TCOG members in general and for Amber Gale as well. We in Enfield adopted our flood damage prevention control law last week. And we, unlike some towns, I know I was at Danby's meeting earlier this month, but we in Enfield got considerable community resistance to the changes. We in Enfield are first ever to be designated with a flood zone. And we got some people who said, we don't like the development controls. We think it's too much over-regulation. And our board explained that this is largely a state mandate, and it was still discussed, and people were still resistant to it. And I was curious to know if any other towns have experienced that kind of community pushback to these regulations.
I'm seeing some heads shaking no. Is anybody experiencing those?
Mark has a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Yeah, we've gotten comments like that. What I learned in redrafting this current version from our town attorney is that the flood damage law does not preclude development in flood zones. That's not its intent. It's to ensure that any development that does occur in the flood zone protects the assets against flood damage. So I don't know if that could be helpful to the discussion, but.
In Enfield, we were aware that the regulations would require a residence or a building to be built so that the bottom floor was 2 feet above a height predicted for a 1 in 100 year flood. And that was too restrictive for some people. We in Enfield had actually proposed, and we then took it out of the law following community resistance, that there be no new residential development in the flood zone, which is fairly small in Enfield. It was right now there are only about 24 homes included. So it was a fairly small area. People said no. So we stripped it down to the bare requirement that DEC is set. Still, there was opposition to it. So just apparently no other towns have experienced that, but our town did.
Well, I would just say that Ulysses is having our public hearing and likely adoption on next Tuesday. So maybe it's a foreshadowing of what we could expect also, but we haven't heard anything yet to date.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this topic?
Just a comment that I think that having the county resource is really helpful.
Great.
Absolutely.
So
Agreed.
thank you, Abigail.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, next up is a presentation on opportunities to engage with Cornell students. Do we have someone to present on that?
Hi, yes, thank you. I am getting my screen ready here. So it's good to see you all. My name is Nicole McPherson. I coordinate the Community Work Study Program, and I also have my colleague Renee Farkas here with us today. And we're from Cornell University's Einhorn Center. And thanks to Darby and Taylor for inviting us into this meeting. We really appreciate the opportunity to see you all and talk to you about these opportunities. They are not by any means an exhaustive list of opportunities to engage with students through Cornell or the Einhorn Center, but there's just a couple programs that we wanted to let you know that are here. And so we're gonna just quickly talk about the Einhorn Center for any of you who might not be familiar with the Einhorn Center at Cornell, and then talk about the Community Work Study Program, the Empire State Service Corps, some grants and awards that are available through the center, and then POST, which is a pre-orientation program, and then how to connect with us. So I'm gonna, we would like to know how you all are currently connecting and engaging with Cornell University students. And we don't have time to go around and have everybody say, but if you're on Zoom, if you want to put something in chat, we can, and if we have time at the end, we can discuss a little bit more about how you all are currently engaging with Cornell students. And I'm gonna introduce Renee Farkas, who's gonna take over and talk a little bit about the Einhorn Center.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Renee Farkas. I'm the Director of Student Programs at the Einhorn Center. I recognized a few names while I've been sitting here, and I'm going to be pretty quick about this because I think we've only got 10 minutes on the agenda, and I want Nicole to be able to talk to you about the opportunities to work with students. But I originally started out with the Public Service Center. That's where I started my job here at Cornell. However, in the summer of 2021, Cornell launched the Einhorn Center for Community Engagement, bringing together over 35 years of experience in the community engaged learning and public service. And so it combined both the public service and the then Office of Engagement Initiatives. And the Einhorn Center is meant to serve as the hub to connect students, staff, and faculty with community engaged opportunities, resources, and peers. And so we have a really large engaged college initiative that we are working with all the colleges to embed community engaged learning into the curriculum and into courses with students. So lots of our colleges are engaging with probably maybe some of you in the local community. And then on my side of the work, it's all specific to co-curricular. We have over 16 student-run organizations, all who have student boards and student volunteers who participate with local community service organizations. So in a nutshell, that's the Einhorn Center.
Thanks, Renee. And I'm going to talk about the Community Work Study Program. So the Community Work Study Program at Cornell offers the opportunity for students to use their fellow work study funds to work at local area nonprofits, municipalities, and schools. There's about 300 students that participate in the program annually, and we have about 50 eligible employers. We have off-campus positions and on-campus positions that can be remote and in-person, depending on the location and the job itself. And as far as timing, the best time to recruit is the beginning of the fall term, which is typically the end of August, beginning of September. I ask supervisors to have job descriptions to me by late August so we can go through the vetting process and have everything ready to be posted for the fall recruitment term. We do hire year round, so we also have summer opportunities, but it's a little bit more difficult to recruit for summer, and eligibility is becoming more difficult as the years go for summer opportunities. But so the academic year is really the most robust time to hire students in the program. And I put some examples together of positions. You can see some different types of positions that we have had in the past. And I will also put, that link in chat. So you have that. My apologies here.
Nicole, we don't have chat activated on the
Oh, you don't?
Zoom link.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can email that directly to me, and I'll share it with members.
Okay, great. I'll send this link out to everybody so you have a link of the examples of the positions also. And then some requirements for the program. So the positions must have a community service public interest aspect to them, and they have to benefit the community at large, the community beyond Cornell University. And the work can be direct or indirect. There's an annual contract and initial paperwork required that needs to be established, and then it's just an annual contract after that. There is a responsibility for the employer, there needs to be a job description, a detailed job description on file. There's a 1-hour program orientation that the supervisor would go through with me, and as an introduction into the program payroll responsibilities. And there's recruitment responsibilities in Workday. So the position is posted in Cornell's Workday system, and students will apply to it. So the supervisor at the agency would be responsible for recruiting that student, so doing interviews and choosing the right student for the job. And then the positions need to be supervised, and time cards need to be approved in a biweekly basis. And the students, it is because this is a work study, it's a federal financial aid for students. So we also have a program called Cornell Tradition, which is an alumni supported program that also funds students that for these opportunities. And so students are vetted by us to make sure that they're eligible. And then at least 75% of the wages are covered by federal work study funds. And then the remaining is billed at the end of each term. So I wanted to talk to you all about these opportunities. We have had some opportunities in the local government the past few years, but I could guess that there could be a lot more opportunities. And last year we had a lot more students, a lot more qualified students that we had jobs open. So I wanted to reach out to see if any of you all would be interested in exploring the program, or at least let you know that we're here so you can think about it. And if you happen to have project work, or an opportunity for a student to learn from you and work with you, feel free to reach out to me and explore, and to see if it's something that would be of interest to you. And we do have so that's a community work study program, and I coordinate that program. There's also the Empire State Service Corps program, which is state funded. And this is a fairly new program. This is the inaugural year, this past year. And it is for students who are part of colleges who are state funded. So it's particular colleges at the university, which is the Agriculture and Life Sciences, Human Ecology, Industrial Labor Relations, and the Vet School. And the program focuses on 9 public interest areas: civic engagement, early childhood education, FAFSA, financial aid assistance of completion, food insecurity and SNAP basic needs, K-12 education, peer mental health, student success coaching, sustainability, and veterans outreach. If you have an opportunity in one of those areas that you'd like to explore having a student working for you, you could potentially get a student for up to 300 hours during the academic year, and there's no cost to participate in the program. But the supervisor's time and training, the contract is very similar to the community work study program contract, which I will also I'll send a link to that as well with the follow-up information. So supervision and mentorship, but there's no cost. There's a limit on how many students through this program. I think Cornell, this year we have 9 slots total of students who can participate through the Empire State Service Corps. The community work study program doesn't have a limit at all. So those are a little bit of the differences of the programs. Amy, I take care of some of the administrative aspects of the Empire State Service Corps, but Amy Samchangbavan, the Assistant Director of Global Community Engagement Learning at Cornell, through the Einhorn Center, is the coordinator of this program. So she would be the contact to reach out to if you're interested in exploring. And there is also engaged opportunity grants available through the Einhorn Center. Eligible projects need to address a community interest or public concern, utilize Cornell undergraduates working with and learning from a community partner, and needs to be co-led by a Cornell faculty staff member and a community partner. And so examples of community partners are listed here, and examples of Cornell connections are also listed. So there's a QR code with a link with more information, and Whitney Tassie is our grants and awards coordinator, and she's happy to talk to anybody who's interested in exploring a project to see if it would qualify for one of our grants. And I'm going to pass it back to Renee, who's going to talk about POST.
I'm just going to make a quick plug for a pre-orientation program that we've had since 1996 called POST. We were on pause for 2 years. We're rebooting this August. POST is meant to introduce incoming first-year students and transfer students to the Ithaca and Tompkins County Community First. So they come here about 5 days early before Cornell's general orientation begins. We actually are housed and stay off campus, and each day they go to a different nonprofit organization or municipality or school and do service. And we can take full day or half days of community service projects. So I just wanted to put this plug out for it. We'll post information on the Human Services Coalition listserv later on this spring or summer, whenever it arrives. But if you're interested, you can email post@cornell.edu. And I know we're throwing out a lot of emails here. So if worse comes to worse, you could email just one email, or maybe it's Nicole's that was listed, however it's listed. And I'd be happy to talk to you about this program. It's a really nice way for these students they ride the TCAP bus, they walk around the community, they get to know it's meant to introduce kids to the community first before they actually start orientation and move into Cornell. So, thank you.
So thank you. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but if anybody has questions, we can spend the rest of the time answering questions.
Great. Thank you, Nicole and Renee. Does anybody have any questions? And please pipe up, just because I don't want to miss you with a smaller screen.
Yeah, one. Can you give us a few examples of things that have been done under these programs?
Sure. The document that's, and we'll send a link to this document that has kind of in-depth examples, but a lot of data analysis. If you have database management work or data analysis, or are you talking about the community work study program? I should have clarified.
Well, any of these, actually.
Okay. Well, data analysis is definitely one of those positions where we post it and students are very interested. Social media and outreach, website updating, operational support. If you have like a project that you've been thinking about doing for a long time and you just don't have the staff to pull it together, you could consider hiring a student. So, I mean, there's lots of different opportunities. There's and depending on your work and what you need done, the positions do need to be specifically for students. So it couldn't be like a work, it couldn't be, they can't displace or replace any staff member or like a work that a staff person might be doing. But so they have to be specifically developed for students. But it can be project work, it can be support in one way or another. And I will share that list out that has the different examples with responsibilities listed. And
So you don't want us to lay off our staff in order to hire the students.
Right. And yes, and they we're limited on there can't be any high risk duties in the job, so no heavy machinery or climbing on ladders over 5 feet tall, or we're limited in the driving we can do also. But you know, if you have something in mind, or if you'd like to run some ideas by us, I'm happy to chat and talk about a little further about what you're looking for and what might be helpful in your department.
For the post program, it's a lot of manual labor. These are new kids. We haven't vetted them for skills. So we do a lot of manual, they do a lot of manual labor in and around the community. They work with Ithaca Children's Garden. We work with Finger Lakes Reuse. We work with, when the youth farm was around, we worked with the youth farm. We work a lot with the different Ithaca City school districts, doing some projects for them. We work, Ithaca Youth Bureau, SPCA's, Meadowgate Equine Rescue. We try to mix it up for them. They pull a lot of invasive weeds. They might do cemetery cleanups. I think they've put stickers on books, a family reading partnership. So we look for things that don't need a ton of training, but can keep a group of kids that are, busy for a half day or 6 hours.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Roadside cleanup.
Here.
Oh, sorry. Just please do send the linked document. I'm the youngest person here, and I was not able to get the QR code to work.
Oh, no. Okay. Yes, we definitely will.
I tested it and it worked for me. So, but it was big on my screen, so that may help too. Wonderful. Any other questions? I just wanted to confirm, and I think this, I just wanted to make sure that when you're saying students, you mean undergraduate students, correct? That's the target population? Nice.
Yes, yeah. Primarily. There's some graduate students get work study, but it's a very small amount.
Nice. Well, Ulysses currently has a project for Design Connect with Cornell, so.
Yeah, great.
Oh, great.
It's great to learn about these. I wasn't familiar with them, and I come out of the Cornell ecosphere, so thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having us here. And for allowing us some time.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good long weekend, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, wonderful. Now we can get to what Mark was wanting to talk about. We have both a report and a discussion on the proposed countywide 911 addressing system. So,
Great.
Mark, do you want to give us the update first, or your report?
Sure. I just have a brief. I did touch base with Michael Steitley about this, and so other people may have more information, but Mike said they have two conditions that they feel, it could be a benefit to have a countywide addressing system. In order for that to happen, he feels like they would need unanimous buy-in from the municipalities, and that they would need to be able to also fix addressing issues. So they would need to have the ability to fix past addressing issues. So those were the two things he mentioned as sort of what he felt were conditions to make this work. So it does kind of make it an appropriate discussion for TGOG membership. So.
Well, I would like to note that that Dan has joined the meeting. So if you are ready, Dan, I will pass the reins to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry I'm a little late. I had another reception for all my graduating students that I had to attend. I'm usually stressed up on any day. I'm just pulling up the agenda so I know exactly where we are. Caitlin, you may need to call out the next agenda item because.
No problem. Well, I think we're still under this report and discussion, item C under reports. What else? I think we were Rod.
I'll just say Town of Ithaca is on board. We would be welcome to have the county take this over.
Yes, Joel.
Tell me, I think that if there's going to be a problem, it's going to be with the dealing with the issues of misnumbering that are out there. Did you get any sense, Mark, for whether they had an appetite for dealing with the non-sequential numbering that we got in some roads?
I'm sorry, Joel. I didn't catch your question entirely.
So when you mentioned that they wanted to be able to deal with the issues with existing numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Does that? I mean, what I was wondering about is that include the misnumbering that we've got on some roads where numbers are out of sequence or they don't.
Yes, that's my understanding. It would be similar to the problem that you and I experienced on Depotron Hollow Road that we had to remedy this year. So yeah.
So both assigning new numbers when somebody builds something new where there hasn't been a number before, and addressing the numbering where the numbers are out of sequence, which is a little bit of that all over the place. But also what about the duplicate name issue? Where you've got the same, Mountain View Road in more than one town or whatever.
Yuga Street.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that would be included within the scope of this, or is that something we'd have to?
I didn't discuss it in that kind of detail with Mike, so I think it could be so.
And it's very tempting to say, good, let's let the county deal with these things because they're hard to deal with on the local level sometimes. But
I'll just echo Rod's. So I haven't canvassed a vote from the town board of Caroline, but I think we would be all in on this. As you know, for our addressing fix, your code officer was very helpful in coming up with an addressing scheme. I think it would be helpful if there was an addressing scheme applied that worked everywhere, that was comprehensive, so that individual code officers just didn't have to come up with their own solutions. So I definitely think this is worth exploring. Pursuing.
I have not polled Ulysses board members either, but our town clerk is very enthusiastic, as our staff at the town. So I think that it seems practical that Ulysses would back it if we got to that point. But I would obviously take it to a vote first.
Bob Lynch has his hand up.
Yes, and this is a question that I'll direct directly to Supervisor Olson because it affects a situation between Enfield and Ulysses, and I suspect other towns have the same situation. I don't know of any situations in our town where houses are misnumbered on a particular road that is all within our municipal jurisdiction. But I'll use an example, Iredell Road, which separates
which one you were gonna
Ulysses
say, yep,
and
Iredell.
Enfield. One side, the numbers run about in the single up to 100 or 200. The other side, they're in the thousands. How do we deal with that?
I think you should turn to Mark. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's been going on in Ulysses, I know, for quite a while. It's not a recent development. But I think that's part of the reason our clerk would be amenable to letting the county take over for that reason.
And that would solve that problem very easily. A little more difficult is on another Enfield border road, which is between the town of Enfield and the town of Hector. Now that gets into two different counties. So that's probably not resolvable in this particular situation. I have not brought the issue of numbering to the Enfield Town Board, but we can put that on the agenda for June.
Well, I know we have a problem in Dryden because my house is misnumbered. And there's a discrepancy between what the county says it is and what the town says it is. And even with my prestigious position as a deputy supervisor, I have not been able to fix it.
Linda, I see your hand.
Yes, I double checked with Brent, our code officer, and it's an emphatic yes. And my understanding is that the code officers in the county are all in favor of this, that it would make their jobs much easier. Obviously, there are going to be some issues that have to be resolved, but better to resolve them this way than to have an emergency people come out and not be able to find a particular address.
Yeah, that's a good point, Linda. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there have to be, you know, some things that need to be worked out in order to make it work. But I too think it's great. It would be great to have a uniform system of standards that would apply all across the whole county, that would be administered by the county, that would get us out of the having to come up with our unique solutions to these problems town by town.
Yeah, I completely agree in theory. I have not discussed this with a majority of my colleagues yet, so I can't promise a position from the city, but we'll look into it further.
Great. Bob Lynch.
There's only one question I have, and that is, what are the constituents going to say when somebody says, I've had number 127 for decades, and now you're changing the number on my house? I wonder what the resistance is going to be like.
I'm happy to answer that because Joel and I did that this year. And we did, from a few residents, we did get resistance or concern, but actually the most vocal residents said, I've recognized this problem on our road and I knew this was coming. I just hate that you did it now because it's inconvenient for me. So at the end of the day, when we did it, we provided them the emergency response 911 addressing signs for each of the houses where we changed the addresses. By the time I delivered those, each of the residents had very nicely signed their properties so that the postman could not only see the new address, but also indicated the old address. And so despite the initial sort of concern, it kind of just went smoothly, and then I think people were happy with it. So they knew the first address on the street was 99, and then the next one was 1. So we had a real problem just from that, but it went beyond that as well. So thank you.
That's reassuring.
I think people out there recognize that when they've got this issue in their neighborhood, people can't find them because they're following the numbers, and suddenly they jump or they revert, or It's like they know, and many of them will be, although it's a nuisance to have to redo your billing information and your address on important documents. It's a kind of a relief knowing that you can be found in an emergency and your friends can find you if they're from out of town.
There's one other thing to consider, and that is we had a situation where a resident wanted their address changed for various reasons, and we tried to accommodate it. And what we ran into was that Google would not change their way of looking at the addresses. So I think at the county level, we might have a little bit more clout to make sure that they change their mapping system also, because it's not just the emergency services, but it's UPS and everybody else that uses that. It needs to be addressed at that point too.
Does anyone know how Google updates when this information is changed? Because I have that problem right now. Google thinks I live in a different location than I do. And I have to warn everybody if they're using Google Maps. It's actually 1989 as opposed to 1997.
Yeah, I don't know, Dan, but that question did come up. My understanding is that the Google sort of follows, somehow, catches up on the information after the change. So
I would think so. Like there would be a lag, but eventually Google would update.
Yeah.
Just as a.
I mean, if we make a sweeping county-wide change, I'm confident we can forward that to Google and see what happens.
Like renaming the Gulf of Mexico?
Yeah. What if we rename every street in the county?
All right, what's the actionable item here? I think we were all in agreement here.
Yeah, so it would just be to determine the consensus of the council. So if it's a majority of folks, representatives who are able to say that we would be interested, then I can just make note in the minutes that it's the consensus of the council that we want to look into this further, and then maybe Mark could reach out to Mike and we can see if we can have a further presentation or greater in-depth discussion on how that would start the ball rolling in the county.
Well, I'm not hearing anyone who is opposed to this, so I think there is a consensus, correct? Great.
We'll mark that in the minutes, and also, of course, I would like to be involved in that process.
Thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the subcommittee liaison and other reports. And first up is the Cybersecurity Municipal Information Technology Services Group.
So we don't have a formal report. I will say that our colleagues in Newfield saw a presentation on software that did combination of code and also accounting and some other things. Their bookkeeper is also our bookkeeper, it's also Enfield's bookkeeper, and so I've requested that she put together a presentation, at least for Ulysses, to organize it. When we did some investigation, I don't have the company's name on the top of my head, or the software's name on the top of my head, but when we did some investigation, it sounded like these are all so tailored to the individual municipalities that an overarching presentation for those municipalities who aren't using software of their own, it doesn't sound like as effective as simply just passing on the word to other municipalities that this might be a service you might be interested in exploring for yourself. So I think that's what we'll be doing, but it's been hard to even get ours scheduled. And so once I have more information about that, I'll let you know how that works. But I heard very impressions of it. So when I have that, I can share with the rest of the group in case anybody else is interested.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Emergency Planning and Preparedness Group.
Great. I'll just lead off by saying I don't really have anything to add to what Corsa provided at the beginning of the meeting, which is to let us know that there is planning. The administration is looking at planning for more robust countywide emergency services, including ambulance, and that that's going to be considered at the Public Service Commission, the Public Safety meeting next week. So do you want to add anything to that, Dan?
Sure. I think what we're excited about is that the work of this group continues to get attention from the county and frankly from peer counties and even New York State. And I think what we're excited about is that there is a recognition that there is a weakness in the system that we've talked about previously in this group, that there's an imbalance in terms of the ambulance services that you will receive depending on where you live in the county. And I think what's exciting right now is that the county legislators see that as unacceptable and want to work with the ambulance providers that exist now to try and fix this situation. But we're not alone. Other counties throughout the state are suffering this. We had this discussion about the essential services legislation last year. It was not, of course, contained in the state budget that just passed. No surprise there. Frankly, because there's a lack of recognition of the problem. And I was in Albany a few weeks ago talking to a number of state legislators, and they just don't see the problem. And so I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for state government to recognize this issue, because there's a general resistance, particularly among towns. There are over 900 towns, and we elect, or we have an association, and the leader of our association has articulated a message against the essential services legislation, saying we don't want the state telling us what to do. And that's been articulated to the state legislators. So one of these members of the assembly was saying, well, Dan, your own association is against this legislation. And, that's not necessarily where we're at, where this I dare say political articulation of policy is made by the state association. It doesn't necessarily reflect what we're looking for here and many of our rural counties. So that being said, I'm not waiting for the state to save us on this, and I'm really glad that we're moving ahead with basically a plan that reflects what the state legislation would ask, which is calling on counties, just to remind you, to show that there is a cooperative agreement among your municipalities to provide EMS services throughout the county jurisdiction. So I think we're on the right track. I'm really glad that the county's doing its work. I'm sorry I missed the report from the county administrator earlier, but he's been a really good new voice on this topic. All right. Any questions?
Bob Lynch. Oh, sorry.
I will just say that I was privileged to take part in a meeting that Mark and convened along with Dan Lamb early in April, I believe it was on April 2nd, where there was a subcommittee meeting where we brainstormed on a lot of things concerning this. And I think the product of this brainstorming may come out at the Public Safety Committee meeting, which is coming up next week. And I think for TCOG members and for anybody from any municipality, it's kind of must-see TV. So if you can't be here for the Public Safety Committee meeting, you ought to zoom in to the meeting either in real time or as a video recording on YouTube, because it sounds like it's going to be informative. Now, at that meeting on the 2nd of April, a man named Paul Bishop, who is a consultant from Penfield, New York, attended. And I believe, if plans still hold, that Mr. Bishop may make some kind of a presentation to the Public Safety Committee meeting. Is that the plan?
Yeah, he has a bare bones proposal to share about, methods that the county could use to expand its services or ensure that services are rendered throughout the county. It's not, it's a proposal to make a proposal, basically. And he is a planning consultant that I met through the Association of Towns who specializes in EMS consulting and analysis and is known statewide. He has presented to the Association of Towns multiple times and knows his stuff. But, it'll be up to the county to decide how they want to work with him or whether they want to work with their in-house staff who are very competent, as you all know. But none of this, I just want to say, none of this would happen without us, so we're a big part of what the county is doing right now. And I don't think there's a better example of cooperation going on.
I'm sure both you, Dan, and you, Mark, are aware that Tompkins County is in a unique situation when it comes to this because we've got some municipal ambulance services that are strained, that are having to meet service requirements outside of their normal territories. Yet there is also a private, for-profit ambulance service also serving a portion of the county. So it's not an easy fix. And I presume that what we're going to be discussing beginning next week will probably try to solve that problem.
Yeah, but the main priority is closing the gaps to make sure that no one has to wait over a half hour for ambulance services to arrive. And we've seen documented cases with the RMR, which, this group, of course, spearheaded, where, the RMR vehicle is waiting in excess of 20 or 30 minutes for an ambulance to arrive, which validates the whole system that we've helped set up, but at the same time shows a lingering, gap in services. And then, of course, you all have heard me talk extensively about Dryden spending 40% of its calls outside of our taxing jurisdiction, which, thankfully, the county and many of you recognize is not a fair situation for the town of Dryden. And Trumansburg has a similar, it's more like 26%, but still a lot of service calls going outside of their taxing authority area. So it's a situation that needs to be fixed, and it shouldn't be on, certain towns to maintain the service that the private providers may be, leaving to the municipal providers to meet.
Yeah, I'll just follow that to say that we recognize there, is a diversity of stakeholders. It's a complicated situation, and that's been part of the process that the Department of Emergency Response, Mike and Joe, have worked to negotiate by, being respectful of that and considering all the stakeholders. So they've done an amazing job. So
when is that meeting coming up, Public Safety Committee next week?
That will be on Tuesday. I just have my calendar here. So Tuesday the 27th at 1 p.m.
Thank you.
Hi, Corsa. I didn't realize you were still with us.
Yes,
I'm glad you're with us, and thank you. Thank you for taking this issue so seriously.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I just wanted to, I had some conversations with AOT because I was disappointed to see that that AOT came out so strongly against the emergency services. And in the conversations I had, I do think there might be bandwidth for people to get on board for emergency services as essential, right? But the problem is there's a lot of fear that it's going to be another unfunded mandate, that the state will mandate it and not provide any pathway to financial success. And I think persuading others in our state, if we're in those positions to have those conversations, would be useful, because I think that's the greater fear that's driving it. It's not that people, everybody wants to call 911 and have somebody respond in a medical emergency, but the reality is it can be a heavy lift for a lot of communities. So I think finding ways to continue to have that conversation more broadly, if there are opportunities to, would be continue to be useful.
You hit it, Caitlin. That's exactly what they say. That's what this assemblyman told me. Your towns don't want a mandate. And I'm like thinking, well, it's really just A, don't make it a mandate. Give us some funding. Mm-hmm. Or B, make the coordination not onerous. Just say the county's got to come up with a plan for services, and that's not an overwhelming expense. It's more like a public safety plan that seems more common sense than anything. But
I think it's also it's a discussion we've had, and I think it's important to remember that I think most people view this as a tremendously important community service. And so, and our community services are supported by taxes. So I don't think we should shy away from that. So.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Any further points anyone wants to raise about this?
You got the right people working on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've done a really good job with problem identification and stakeholder incorporation. These are key things, and really that's what I think the state legislation should do. Just say, hey, we can do better than this. Every county doesn't have to do it the same, but we've got to make sure that there's some consistency across the state, that it is addressed. Because in the meantime, the private sector ambulances are cherry picking calls and leaving a burden on the municipal services or the nonprofit services.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
All right, very good. Well, I think we can move on to energy.
As reported before, this committee has been on hold, so there's no report. I will say that both the city and the town are poised to vote on community choice aggregation revised laws in June. So that might mean that we start circling back around to other municipalities who are interested later this year. So, but the committee has not been meeting.
Okay. Any questions for Rod before we move on? All right, so then we have the Transportation Committee.
Yes, I can give you a brief report about both TCAT and also about Tompkins Transportation Scout, which we discussed a little bit at the prior meeting, and I did not know a whole lot about it. I know a little bit more about it. I was not able to attend the rollout on the 17th of April, unfortunately, but I have accessed a little bit of information about that. Let's deal with TCAT first, and I wanted to get an update, so Ms. Poist at TCAT has given me a brief synopsis of what's happened since our last meeting. TCAT expects to receive 3 of its 5 brand new Gillig diesel buses from California, likely before Wednesday of next week. This is great news. Our fare box and automatic vehicle locator equipment is already installed. However, IT will still need to do some programming on each bus. She continues. Also, they need to pass inspection before they can go into service. New York State Department of Transportation inspectors have a busy schedule, but we are going to ask them to prioritize these 3 if possible. The other 2 new buses remain at the California manufacturing facility and are awaiting passenger seats. This is a supply chain issue, and I don't have a timeline on when they will be installed. Now, regarding Transportation Scout, as I understand, the primary purpose of this is to help people find various alternative forms of transportation to get from here to there. And it basically is an app you put on your smartphone that will help you find out whether it's best to take a TCAT bus, whether it's best to use ride share, bike share, walk to the destination, or maybe drive yourself. And I would suggest that people might want to download the app and find out if it works for them. I did talk to Ms. Poist of TCAT about their interaction with Tompkins Transportation Scout, and she told me, we advise our customers to use our MyStop app, which has real-time information, and the app and over which we have control, that is Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit. The Transportation Scout app offers a lot of information that can be helpful for those seeking multimodal options. But she says, as far as using the bus itself, better use their software instead of Transportation Scout. I suppose there are some bugs that still have to be worked out. And that's my report.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any questions for Bob?
Bob, is that called Scout, did you say?
Transportation Scout.
Scout. Well, I'm...
SCOUT, and they have a cute little dog as their logo.
I'm interested to try it from Caroline to see what I come up with. So.
Mm-hmm.
Anything on the airport, Bob?
I'm sorry?
Anything on the airport?
Nothing on the airport that I have. Perhaps Corsa has some information on the airport that's come out over the course of time.
Okay. I think the airport currently is discussing some funding models for the 3rd flight from United. I don't have any specific report here that I can read out, but I think by the time we meet next, we'll have something substantial to inform. But there are conversations going on right now between other partners to the airport to come up with some kind of revenue guarantees to support United's 3rd flight, and that conversation is ongoing.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but someone neglected to mention the monocle that is being worn by the dog in the Scout app logo. That's very important. It's wearing a monocle.
You wouldn't expect that from a dog.
I wouldn't expect much of anything.
I would think bifocals. All right. So that wraps up our agenda. The last item is the next meeting agenda and ideas from any of you that you want to see added to the agenda. I know one thing I was thinking might be useful is to report on the state and federal budget situation. And I could reach out to liaisons at either of our legislative offices, state assembly, or Congress to see if they could send a rep, or I could use my old staff hat and try and summarize some of the things that I think we should be aware of resulting on either level as a town and what they mean. I know that we're concerned about community development block grant funding and what that might mean in the next cycle. What it means in this cycle for our prospects for additional funding. But I think our gut sense on the coming year is that there will be less, if anything, coming from the federal government. And I think we should all be aware of that and share that information. And would probably be good to look at what the state is doing as well. I know from speaking to legislators in the last couple of weeks that they're really doing two budgets, the budget they just passed, and then the expectation that they'll have to come back and do an additional budget this year to mitigate the responses or effects of federal cutbacks. And that makes for some pretty interesting impacts on us at the municipal level, town level. Would that be of interest?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yes, though I want to be careful we're not replicating the work of the Tiger Committee at the county level.
The Tiger Committee.
Intergovernmental Relations Committee.
Okay.
Dan, if I can, and Pierre, that's a good point, because I think that the challenges that we may face are similar. There are some differences between county and the town and village and city governments as opposed to the county in some of the state budgets. But the Tompkins Intergovernmental Relations Committee, which meets quarterly, which Legislator Black chairs, just met, and NISAC has been giving us updates, the New York State Association of Counties, as it relates to the impact of the state budget to the county level. But I think this group probably would be, well positioned to get a more specific update as it relates to, other levels of government and the impact that the state budget has.
Mm-hmm.
So, our concern would be more about the grant funding through housing and urban development or transportation, whereas I'm sure NISAC is talking about Medicaid predominantly, and we don't do Medicaid at the town level yet. But all good points.
When Danby are drafting a joint statement, which we to send to our legislators, including the president, in objecting to the proposed termination, not just cutback of CDBG.
Yeah, that's good. Make sure the White House is on one of the CCs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much doubt that our state and federal elected representatives are tracking the issues that we're concerned about or outraged about. And my discussions with them or their staff, these are coming from the White House, the executive branch,
mm-hmm.
imposing its will on the Congress.
But Congress goes along with the
half of them.
Yeah, half plus one.
Yep. All right, so our next meeting appears on the calendar is the 24th of July. Correct, Taylor?
Yes, let me look now.
July? Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
That may be my birthday, but please, don't sing. Don't want it.
Aw.
I make no promises.
I'll probably be here. I will. So we'll circle up then, unless there's anything else. Maybe I could get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, great. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.